Good morning. We are now on the record. The time is now 11:01 a.m. on October 8th, 2021. This is the video deposition of Philip S. Wang, a Master's of Science in Mechanical Engineering, taken in the matter of Brandon Martinez versus Kathy Ching Sargent et al. This is filed in the Superior Court of the State of California for the County of Los Angeles Central District, case number of which is BC7130088. My name is Jordan Barbosa. I am the remote videographer today. The court reporter is Mary Pierce. We are representing Pantera Court Reporters. Counsel, will you please state your name and whom you represent, after which the court reporter will swear in the witness.
Good morning, John Schwalbach for the plaintiff.
And Catherine Curtis, appearing for defendants.
And Ms. Curtis, you were a little bit faint there. I don't know if you can either get closer to the mic or turn it up.
Yeah, sorry, I've had this issue for a while at the office. Can you hear? I'll just try to speak up. Can you hear me when I do that?
I can hear you very well right there. Thank you. Mr. Wang, would you raise your right hand for me, please? You do solemnly state the testimony you should give in these proceedings shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Good morning, Mr. Wayne. How many times have you been deposed before?
75 to 100.
You feel comfortable skipping over the rules or the admonitions for the deposition process today?
I do.
Okay. When were you first contacted to be an expert in this case?
Looks like March 17th of 2020.
Who contacted you?
Ms. Curtis.
That March 17th, 2020 date, it looks like you're looking at something. What are you basing that on?
I'm basing that on a case intake sheet that when I'm first contacted on a sheet, I write some preliminary information on.
What did you understand at that time your job was to be in this case?
At that time, the assumption was probably accident reconstruction. There's no specific assignment denoted at that time.
Do you intend to offer any opinions outside of the accident reconstruction arena?
No.
Okay. What I'm going to do now is mark as exhibit number 1 a copy of your deposition notice, and I'm going to pull this into the chat box too, so Catherine has a copy. Mr. Wayne, do you see a copy of this document, exhibit number 1? Have you seen this before?
I have a copy in front of me.
Oh, great. Okay. And I'll pull it off down from the screen sharing. Other than this notice of deposition, what documents do you have in front of you today?
I have my entire file.
Excellent. The deposition notice contains 30 items that cover various areas which may be a part of your expert file in this case. Have you made an effort to try to retrieve and locate all of those items?
I have.
And have they been made a part of your? Yeah.
Just a quick note that there have been objections made to the notice of deposition. To the extent those objections apply, he may not have submitted responses to the request for production, but otherwise he can proceed.
Got it. And let me, to be fair, let me attach that objection notice as exhibit number 2. With the objection, have you seen a copy of the objections, Mr. Wayne?
I don't think I have.
Okay. Did you make every effort to produce your entire file and produce the documents responsive to your deposition notice?
I did.
Okay. So exhibit number 2, I'll just bring up quickly so we know what we're looking at. This is a copy of the objections that Ms. Curtis was referring to. relating to your document production. All right. As a part of your document production, I saw a series of invoices. The most recent invoice that I saw was dated July 31st, 2021. Have you done any work on this case since July 31st, 2021?
I have.
Approximately how many hours have you worked on this case since the end of July?
As an estimate, maybe 5 to 8 or 10.
Okay. And just in broad strokes, can you tell me what those 5 to 10 hours have involved?
Sure, preparing for the deposition.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm going to attach as exhibit number 3, a list, a copy of all the invoices that I saw in the production that you made. Do you see exhibit number 3 in front of you, Mr. Wayne?
I do.
And this invoice that I'm referring to with the date of July 31st, 2021, is this the most recent invoice that you've done to date, minus the 5 to 10 hours that you've done since then?
Yeah, the reason that 5 to 10 hours hasn't been invoiced yet is because they occurred like within the last week or so, and I bill on a monthly basis. So the invoices that you are looking at are the sum total of all the invoices that have been created to date on this case.
Okay, great. And I did the math, and I think your total invoices through the end of July were about $8,000. Does that sound about right to you?
I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
attorney doing math, what could possibly go wrong?
there we go. And at least all the time you've spent has been reflected in the invoices to date, minus the 5 to 10 hours that you have yet to bill. Is that correct?
Agreed.
All right. I saw you billed for a Zoom conference with an attorney in the end of July. Do you recall what happened during that conference?
Could you pull up the invoice?
Yeah. Let me pull it up on the screen for you. You see the invoice?
I do.
Referring to this last sentence on July 22nd, 2021, Zoom conference with attorney.
Agreed. If I just wanted to get some context, it appears from the context that from my recollection, my deposition was originally scheduled earlier than this. The creating the graphical exhibits and a Zoom conference with the attorney would fit in with that time frame. My expectation and recollection was most likely I would have been working on the graphical exhibits to produce at the time of my previously noticed deposition, and then had a Zoom conference with the attorney to talk about if the deposition was going forward.
Okay. You recall anything else from that conversation?
I do not.
All right, I'm going to drag exhibit number 3 into the chat box so everyone has a copy of it. And also just rolling through these exhibits, I'm going to pull up exhibit number 4, which is a copy of your CV. Do you see that up on the screen in front of you, exhibit number 4?
I do.
Is this your most recent curriculum vitae?
Is this the one I just provided to you a couple days ago?
Yes.
Then yes.
All right.
You know what? Oh yeah, it is. Most
Do any
correct,
of your
yes.
publications or presentations apply to the opinions that you're going to be offering in this case?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm looking at page 3 of exhibit number 4. Do any of these publications or presentations apply to the opinions that you're going to be offering in this case?
Not directly, no.
Okay. The second item under your presentations in October 2016, it looks like you put on a presentation at a trial academy. In what context were you presenting for that event?
I essentially offered myself up as a guinea pig for a mock trial where I was the expert and just subjected to cross-examination, direct examination. It was essentially to train younger attorneys.
Was that presentation put on for defense lawyers?
It was for, yeah, State Farm employees.
So as far as you know, that presentation and the mock trial was a presentation that was put on solely for defense attorneys. Is that right?
I don't know if it was solely for defense attorneys. It was put on by State Farm for their employees, which definitely included State Farm defense attorneys, but there was other parties present.
Got it. That presentation did not include any plaintiff attorneys, correct?
Objection asked and answered. You can answer it again. I don't know if the answer-
So
Go ahead, Mr. Wayne.
I couldn't hear. Was there a do not answer that question at the end of that?
No, I said you can answer it again.
Oh, okay. To my knowledge, I don't think so. No, there were not plaintiff attorneys present.
Okay. And also pulling up exhibit number 5. Quickly rolling through this. Is this a copy of your current fee schedule?
It is.
All right. Your deposition time on videotape is $475 per hour, correct?
Correct.
Trial testimony, $375 per hour, correct?
Correct.
This second item, it says retainer if requested, $5,000. Did you require a retainer in this case?
I did not.
In what circumstances would you typically require a retainer of the attorneys retaining you?
The company policy is to request retainers for plaintiff cases when I'm representing a plaintiff.
Do you always waive your retainer for the defense?
Yes.
All right, you also produced for me a copy of your the last 4 years of your testimony at deposition and trial. Let me pull up a copy of this exhibit as well. You see a copy of your testimony list, Mr. Wayne.
I do.
All right, this is the next in order. Does this list compose all of your deposition and trial testimony over the last 4 years?
It does.
All right. And it says it was printed on October 5th, 2021. Can I assume that this document is current through that date?
It is.
Have you done any depositions or trials since September 10th?
No, Long versus Thompson was the last one. And I
Okay.
believe that was a deposition.
Looking at this list, can you tell me what percentage of the time you're working for the plaintiff versus the defense?
Looking at the list, no. Just by memory, for the longest time, my testimony breakdown was approximately 60% plaintiff, 40% defense. In the last 2 or 3 years, that's kind of shifted. So I would probably say it's closer to 50-50.
Okay. The last trial that you testified at was Zambrano versus Broussard. Who did you testify for in that case?
I testified on behalf of Broussard, the defendant.
Is there some reason you don't keep track of which side you were testifying for on that list that you prepared?
Because by the time I thought it was a good idea to do it, I couldn't go back and figure out a lot of the old ones. And I had an old assistant try to go back and figure it out, and she couldn't do it either. That's my reasoning why. Now, I don't know why I didn't start it when I came up with this first brilliant idea, because then at least going forward from that point, but no.
How long have you been doing expert work?
I started in this industry probably in the mid 1990s. I started
And-
testifying probably in the late 1990s.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And almost every time you've been deposed or testified at trial, has someone asked you how your breakdown is plaintiff versus defense?
Not every time, but it's a common question.
Got it. Okay, so the next exhibit I'm going to show you is exhibit number 7. And this is a screenshot that I took of your file production because you produced it to us in a Dropbox. You know what? I'm having trouble attaching this one, so I'm going to attach it later, but let me just read off the files to you. And I know you recently got me some research documents, correct?
This morning, yes.
All right. The other items I have, I'm just going to list off the folders for you and tell me if I'm missing anything. Aerials, correspondence, ENG, which I assume refers to engineering, FARO, FARO, INSP, inspection photos, I believe, opposing expert, provided photos, and then 2 videos. Am I missing anything?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. And then the other photo or the other folder that you produced to me is your research folder, which included 3 PDFs related to motorcycles, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't see any emails with the defense lawyers in this case. Did you exchange any emails with the defense attorneys about your work in this case?
I'm sure, well, about my work, no. There were some emails that went back and forth, mainly for scheduling purposes. I don't save any of the emails. I save the attachments to the emails that's in the electronic correspondence, but the actual emails I don't save. So there's no emails for me to produce.
Okay. Is there a reason why you delete emails of correspondence between lawyers when you're serving as an expert in the case?
Yeah, it's not specific to lawyers serving while serving as experts in the case. I typically keep all my emails inboxes very clean. It's my way of organizing. If I've already addressed it, then I delete it. If it's still in my inbox, then I know I need to address it. And that's my way of, knowing that have I taken care of whatever the substance is or not.
Got it. Would anyone else in your office communicate with the defense lawyers in this case by email?
No.
Okay. What materials did you review to form your opinions in this case?
I reviewed traffic collision report, vehicle damage estimates of the Toyota Prius, deposition transcripts of Kathy Sargent, Officer Nick Stratus, Brandon Martinez, and photographs that were provided to me of both vehicles as well as at-scene photos.
Okay. Did you rely on any other materials in forming your opinions?
I did.
What else?
Materials that I obtained by myself, such as vehicle specifications for both vehicles, aerial photographs of the accident location. I did a scene inspection as well as a vehicle inspection and download of the subject Prius. I did research for motorcycle riding and lane splitting, as well as a accident simulation.
What research did you do for motorcycle riding?
Specifically on lane splitting, and I guess they're not requirements, but recommendations for lane splitting.
And you say they're recommendations as opposed to requirements. What are you basing that on?
Shortly before the accident, within a few years prior to the accident, the state of California changed their stance on motorcycle lane splitting. So it at the time of the accident, it was legal to do it. And there are certain guidelines in which you should follow while doing it. And the reason I say recommendations as opposed to rules, I don't believe any of them are citable offenses or, quote, breaking the law if you don't follow them.
Do any of those guidelines apply in this case?
They do.
Which ones?
Specifically, what come to mind are the clothing recommendations, help drivers see you by wearing brightly colored reflective protective gear. And the other one that danger increases at high speed differentials.
Any others?
Traffic flow, travel at a speed that is no more than 10 miles an hour faster than other traffic. And those are the ones that immediately apply to our situation.
How did the clothing recommendations from the CHP play into this case?
It's all about visibility when you're on a motorcycle. The rider, Mr. Martinez, was wearing all black with a black helmet. Obviously, the more visible you are, the brighter you are, the more contrast your clothes have, increases visibility, increases the chances that you are seen.
Would it have made a difference in this case if Mr. Martinez was wearing yellow or reflective clothing at the time of the accident?
It could have.
Sorry. But go ahead, Phil.
You can answer, Mr. Wang.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. Potentially, it could have.
Was Mr. Martinez doing anything other than wearing, let me start over. Mr. Martinez had his headlight on at the time of the accident, correct?
I don't have any reason to believe otherwise.
I'm sorry. Let me.
So my assumption is yes, it was on. I don't have any reason to believe otherwise.
Okay.
Although I don't have any physical proof that it was on. I'm under the impression and opinion that it likely was on.
Well, the motorcycle itself had an always on headlight, true?
It is equipped with one, yes.
Is there a way to turn that off?
That I don't know on that particular model. The other option, the other possibility is it just wasn't working at the time.
Got it.
I'm not suggesting that's the case. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Do you have any experience riding motorcycles?
I do.
Okay. Tell me about your experience.
I ride a sport bike. That's my main motorcycle is a Kawasaki Ninja. I have the motorcycle endorsements, the M1 license. That's about it. I'm a recreational rider.
When did you get your license?
In the mid, somewhere around 2016, 17-ish. So 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. Is a motorcyclist in California supposed to obtain a copy of the DMV's new handbook every year?
Technically, I don't know. Practically, I doubt it.
Do you get a copy of the DMV's new handbook every year and read it from cover to cover?
I get a handbook every year. I do not read it from cover to cover.
Okay. Do you think it's negligent for a motorcyclist to not read the new DMV handbook every year?
Cover to cover every year?
Yes.
Do I think it's negligent? No. I mean, I'm going to be
And
careful about
also-
double negatives here.
Yeah,
I-
I'm also gonna insert a late objection that calls for legal opinion, but you can continue.
I wouldn't be shocked if not every motorcyclist read the cover to cover every year, and wouldn't necessarily consider somebody negligent just for not reading it cover to cover every year.
Right. So I guess as someone who rides motorcycles and admittedly doesn't read the handbook every year, you would have no criticisms of Mr. Martinez if he too didn't read and review the new DMV handbook for motorcyclists every year it came out. Is that true?
I think you're slightly misstating what I said. I do receive it every year. I do review it every year. I certainly do not read it cover to cover every year.
Got it. What parts do you read?
I usually skim to what the changes are. If there are any changes, I'll review those, but certainly not reread the entire thing.
Okay. Is there a specific section in the DMV handbook that tells you what the changes are to the prior year?
Not that I'm aware of.
So how do you find out what the changes are?
Typically, at the beginning of every year, there's a list of new laws that come out. And since I'm in this industry, I kind of know which ones pertain to motorcycles and vehicles and the DMV handbook. And so I cross-reference that with when I receive the handbook, I kind of go through it and go, okay, this is what they're talking about.
Got it. And what percent of your work is involved doing expert work like you're doing in this case?
Directly or indirectly, I would say close to 100%.
Okay. So when you receive the new DMV handbook every year, you know it directly applies to what you do as an expert because you need to know what the updated rule changes are. True?
Yes.
That same impetus might not apply for a standard everyday motorcyclist. Is that true?
The impetus that applies for the everyday motorcyclist as well as myself is self-preservation. I think in my mind, that is for me personally more important than the legal aspect in my professional life is my life in general, riding my motorcycle. So when a everyday motorcyclist doesn't have the added burden of being a accident reconstruction expert professionally, he still does have that quote unquote burden of his own safety on the road.
Are you familiar with Joe Yates?
I have seen his work, yes.
Okay. Did you read his deposition in this case?
I don't believe I have.
I did see that you reviewed his file. Did you have a chance to look at his list of opinions?
If his page of notes was essentially his opinions, then yes. If there was something that was titled opinions, then no.
Okay. And that's what I'm referring to, the page of notes. I don't want to throw you off and I want to make sure we're on the same page. Given his background and training with motorcycles, would you defer to Mr. Yates on the safe operation of a motorcycle?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I disagree with some of his opinions and conclusions in this case. If you're asking if him and I go for a ride together and he says, oh, you might want to go into this turn and take this line, in that kind of a sense, I might defer to him, yes.
Okay. Well, he has more years of experience riding motorcycles than you do, true?
That's my understanding.
Did you do a physical inspection of the Prius?
I did.
Did you do that personally?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, did you do that personally or did someone else in your office do it?
Oh,
for
no,
you?
I did it.
Okay. That's a good question for me to ask to get this out of the way. All the expert work that you did in this case, did you have anyone assisting you?
No.
What is your expertise in CDR?
I am certified by Bosch as a technician and an analyst.
And how did you obtain the CDR that you used in this case?
Are you talking about the readout from the subject Prius?
Yes.
Oh, so during my inspection of the Prius, I went in via the OBD2 and downloaded it with the Bosch EDR system.
Okay. When did you obtain that?
April 8th of 2020.
And you provided the data that you downloaded to Mr. Yates, correct?
I provided it to my counsel who volunteered it to Mr. Yates, as my understanding.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you for clarifying that. Is Mr. Yates essentially in the same position as you to evaluate the data that you downloaded from the Prius?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Was he able to download it himself? There was no reason that I know that he couldn't have did it himself. Is he in the same position as in, does he have the same credentials to interpret? I don't know. I don't know what his background in EDR, either imaging or analyzing is.
Got it. But in essence, he has access to the same data that you were able to review, whatever his qualifications and credentials are. You are in, let me put it this way. Are you in a better position to evaluate the CDR or the crash data simply by the fact that you downloaded it?
Not simply by the fact I downloaded it, no.
Okay. Are you critical of how Mr. Yates interpreted the CDR?
I am not, because I don't, partly because I don't specifically know how he interpreted it. I didn't see anything glaringly, I shouldn't say wrong, but glaringly different in his time distance reconstruction from mine. So I would assume that he didn't interpret it grossly inaccurately.
Okay. And what was the purpose of using the crash data in this case to help you evaluate it and form your opinions?
The main purpose of obtaining it and using it is because this model of vehicle gives pre-impact data. So it goes back approximately 5 seconds from an event, and it tells you, among other things, speed of the vehicle, braking status, turn radius. So in this case specifically, I was very interested in it because it allowed me to very accurately reconstruct the left turn that was attempted by Miss Sargent.
Got it. Do you have a report or an opinion list that shows all the opinions that you intend to offer at the time of trial?
I scribbled one out, yes.
Oh, is that somewhere in your file?
It is now, but it just, it's nowhere except for in hard copy here.
Okay. Would you mind? Why don't you go ahead and read out your opinions from the opinion list, if it's not too long.
No, it's, I can kind of, they're kind of bullet pointed.
Perfect.
So the top of the page essentially just says Martinez versus Sargent, date of the accident, 4/12/2018. Martinez riding 2015 Suzuki GSX-R 750, westbound Valley Boulevard. And John, would you like me to go through them all, or do you want me to pause in between and you can do what you got to do in between each one?
Let's go through them one by one. And then if I have some questions, I'll ask you about them. Thanks for asking.
Sergeant driving 2015 Toyota Prius, turning left into parking lots at 11655 Valley Boulevard.
Keep going, please.
Martinez, lane splitting between westbound, number 1, number 2 lanes.
Thank you. Keep going.
Martinez approach speed approximately 20 miles per hour. Multiple vehicles stopped east of subject driveway. Martinez speed differential approximately 20 miles per hour. Martinez wearing all black, no high visibility clothing. Sergeant brakes while entering and crossing westbound number 1 lane. Motorcycle front contacts Toyota right front corner. Motorcycle impact speed approximately 20 miles per hour. Toyota impact speed approximately 5 miles per hour.
Okay. Anything more?
That's the total of it.
Got it. You mentioned the driver, Kathy Sargent, braking. At what point during the left turn did Miss Sargent brake?
She began braking just as the left front corner of her vehicle entered the westbound number 1 lane, and continued braking while she was crossing that number 1 westbound lane.
How many seconds into her turn was she when she first started braking?
That's a tough question, depending on where you define the beginning of her turn.
It's easier for us to work backwards, correct? Given the crash data.
Sure.
So how many seconds before the impact was it before when Miss Sargent first started braking?
Approximately 2.5 seconds prior to impact was when she started braking the first time.
Okay, and then the second time she applies the brake, when is that?
It is shortly before impact.
How short?
Don't know.
Okay. We're talking fraction of seconds?
Within a second, within the last second, maybe half second.
Okay. All right. Did you make any determination about when Mr. Martinez would have been visible to Miss Sargent as she was making the left turn?
No. That's very dependent on the exact location of vehicles, specifically the vehicles in the number 1 lane, just east of the driveway, as well as the type of vehicles they are.
Did you make any determination about when Miss Sargent would have been visible to Mr. Martinez?
No.
You're talking about the type of vehicles in lane 1 and lane 2 going in Mr. Martinez's direction immediately before the accident. Do you have any idea what type of vehicles those were? SUV, sedan, trucks, anything?
No.
And you sort of touched on it, but how would the types of vehicles that were in between Miss Sargent and Mr. Martinez affect the accident?
I don't know, they would affect the accident. They would have potentially affect the line of sight between the motorists, meaning Mr. Martinez and Miss Sargent. The essentially the geometry of the vehicles. You could obviously picture if it was a tractor trailer or a bus, a city bus, as opposed to a Cooper Mini that was in the line of sight, the time that the parties could become visible to each other could be different. And I know I'm choosing two extreme examples. I'm not meaning to imply that either one of those was present at the time.
No, and you said it better than me. You're talking about visibility, so thank you for that. Okay, so the speed differential was 20 miles per hour at the time of the accident, correct?
As well as shortly prior to on approach.
When you say shortly prior to on approach, what matter of seconds are we talking about?
Ultimately, that's going to depend on the amount of cars that were stopped eastbound or east of the driveway. The testimony is at least there was 2 cars stopped back to back. So, you know, depending on the room in between, that's 40 feet-ish. So at least for that last 40, 50 feet, the speed differential was 20 miles per hour. If there was 3, 4 cars that were stopped, then we just add on additional distance.
Whose testimony are you basing it on that there were at least 2 cars stopped behind traffic?
I believe both parties, both drivers testified there were multiple cars stopped in each lane.
Are you giving any opinions about motorcycle standards in this case?
I don't know. The opinions that I read out to you are my main opinions I plan on giving. I don't know if those fall under whatever category you just said or not.
Got it. Okay, so we've talked about the clothing recommendation or the Mr. Martinez wearing all black clothing instead of something that was more reflective and visible, right?
Correct.
And the second one you mentioned was danger increases as speed differential increases. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Are you critical of Mr. Martinez's speed differential with traffic?
Yes.
What are all your opinions criticizing Mr. Martinez with respect to the speed differential?
I believe the 20-mile-an-hour speed differential between his travel speed and the vehicles that were stopped were too high for the conditions.
What should his speed differential have been?
I believe the recommended speed differential was 5 to 10 miles an hour.
What are you basing that on?
I believe some of the literature that was presented for as far as recommendations.
Is that coming from the CHP or the DMV?
DMV.
Have you seen any of the CHP recommendations about what speed differential is appropriate for a motorcyclist lane splitting?
I don't believe the CHP has gone on record and given numerical values. They just essentially blanket it by saying danger increases as your speed differential goes up and danger decreases as your speed differential goes down.
Do you think a speed differential for Mr. Martinez with traffic of 10 to 15 miles per hour would have been reasonable?
Well, according to the DMV, it's 10 miles an hour or below. So I guess the lower part of your range probably would have been reasonable, at least according to the DMV. The 15 clearly exceeds that recommendation.
Okay. And what would have the differences been from an accident reconstruction perspective if Mr. Martinez was traveling 10 miles per hour versus 20 miles per hour?
Objection, speculation. Conjecture. But you can go ahead if you know.
there's a lot of hypotheticals in that, but if we were to assume that he was traveling at 10 instead of 20, depending on the amount of time he was doing it, there's a chance that the vehicle would have cleared the turn prior to him arriving at that same spot. The other alternative is that the lower the speed, it allows more time for perception reaction on both parties' parts. And then the lower speed obviously comes into braking distance. The lower the speed you are, the less distance it requires for you to stop. And then obviously the lower the speed, even if there is a collision, it can mitigate the severity.
Ms. Sargent testified that she never saw Brandon Martinez at all before the impact. Is that right?
That's my recollection of her testimony, yes.
Okay. So Mr. Martinez going 10 miles per hour versus 20 miles per hour in this case would solely be to give him more time to brake to avoid the accident. Is that true?
First of all, the physical evidence is consistent with her perceiving and reacting to something prior to impact. Nobody's really able to say for certain what it is, but one thing that she could be reacting to is actually seeing or hearing Mr. Martinez on approach. Secondly, the speed at which Mr. Martinez is approaching can also affect Miss Sargent's opportunity to see him. Obviously, the slower he's going, the longer it's going to take him to get there. That's more time for her to see, perceive, react to his presence. So it's not solely the speed differential is, or the speed decrease is not hypothetically only a potential benefit to Mr. Martinez. It's also a potential benefit to Miss Sargent.
And again, you form no opinions about the visibility issues in this case. Is that true?
I don't know that that's true. I believe that the vehicles that were stopped and slowing on the east side of the driveway presented some kind of a visual obscurement to both drivers.
Would Mr. Sargent have been, I'm sorry, would Mr. Martinez have been visible to Miss Sargent in the last second before the impact?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Are you going to be offering any opinions about whether Mr. Martinez would have had an opportunity to brake and avoid the accident based on visibility issues?
Objection, vague and ambiguous, but if you understand the question, you can answer.
Only if given hypotheticals.
Okay. Would you be able to determine at what speed Mr. Martinez would have needed to be going to have sufficient time to see Ms. Sargent and brake to avoid the accident?
Again, that's, am I able, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if this is something that you could do given the universe of information and the documents that you've reviewed for this case. Would you be able to determine what speed Mr. Martinez would have had to be going to have sufficient time to see Ms. Sargent coming in to the number 2 lane and brake to avoid colliding with her?
Given the amount of information that we currently have, my answer is no.
Okay.
Given some hypotheticals, assume this vehicle was, this type model vehicle was in the number 1 lane in this specific position, then I could start to give you some answers. But there's too many unknowns at this point to have a definitive answer for that question.
Would you agree with me that without knowing what type of vehicles were involved in the number 2 and the number 1 lanes, it's impossible to determine what I just asked you?
I never like to say anything's impossible, but I can't think of a reasonable way to complete that with the data set that we have.
Okay. Okay. Are you going to be offering any opinions about who was responsible for the motor vehicle accident?
Other than the main opinions that I've opined today, I mean, that's essentially the crux of the responsibility of the parties. I'll let the jury decide where to assign the blame based on what I've articulated to you today.
Are you going to be assigning any percentage of liability to Ms. Sargent versus Mr. Martinez?
No.
Other than the 3 criticisms that you had of Mr. Martinez and his operation of the motorcycle, do you have any criticisms of Ms. Sargent in her execution of the left turn?
I'll take your word for it that there was 3. I'm not sure what the 3 were, but I'll take your word for it. But as far as Ms. Sargent, I don't have any criticisms of her turning motion.
Okay. And just to be clear on Mr. Martinez, I think we talked about the clothing is one that you mentioned, danger increases as speed increases, and then traffic flow was the other. Are there any other criticisms that you have of Mr. Martinez and his motorcycle operation?
I'm not sure where traffic flow came from. I don't think I've ever uttered those words.
Oh, sorry. I guess what I meant was, traffic and speed differential.
Okay. So no, speed differential is a criticism, and then the clothing is a criticism. I don't think, what was the other one?
I think your general opinion was danger increases as speed increases.
Okay, and that kind of comes into the speed differential increase. So
Okay.
Just to be clear, I don't really have a criticism of his speed per se. 20 miles an hour, I don't think is in itself inherently dangerous. It's the speed differential that comes into play.
Are you critical of Mr. Martinez for lane splitting based solely on the fact that he was traveling at a speed of 20 miles per hour?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it's the speed differential. Got it. What was the traffic flow like that day in Mr. Martinez's direction immediately before the accident?
Define immediately.
Thank you. Within the last 5 seconds before the accident.
I'll preface this by saying, I don't know. I don't have a independent way to verify, but what has been conveyed to me through the deposition testimony of Mr. Martinez is that there was periods of time on approach where the traffic was going 10 to 15, and there was periods of time where they would come to a stop. The testimony from Miss Sargent kind of buttresses that. She was saying there was a lot of traffic buildup east of the accident location, which would be the direction that Mr. Martinez was traveling in. So
And
they both kind of say the same thing, if you will.
And she also said that she had been waiting in the left turn pocket for about 30 to 60 seconds before she initiated the turn. Is that true?
That I don't recall offhand.
Assuming that's true, would that suggest to you that traffic was flowing slowly but moving in the immediate time period before Ms. Sargent made the left turn?
Objection calls for conjecture, misstates evidence.
So what I'm seeing is 30 seconds to a minute of time elapsed from the moment she first pulled into the left turn lane until the moment the accident occurred. I don't know that that's exactly, I don't know that she's exactly waiting stationary for 30 seconds to a minute. So I'm envisioning in my head a scenario where she is approaching eastbound and there's cars going westbound. And then what I'm picturing is by the time she gets to the driveway, the traffic is slowly backing up to that point. So it wasn't, the traffic wasn't completely stopped the entire time she was on approach, which is consistent with Mr. Martinez's testimony that traffic was moving in his direction on approach. It seems like the traffic stopped closer to the time that the impact occurred.
Okay. So is it true that within seconds before the impact occurred, traffic going in Mr. Martinez's direction had stopped?
Objection, misstates evidence. Calls for speculation, conjecture.
In a broad sense, yes. I mean, there's a lot of specifics that need to be ironed out. Where did the traffic stop? How much, when you say within seconds, was it within 1, 2, 10, or 100? But in a general sense, your statement is correct. I would agree with it.
And based on all the testimony that we have, would you agree that it appears to be that the traffic stopped within 3 to 5 seconds before the impact?
That's a reasonable estimate, I would think. I haven't calculated it out, but that's a reasonable estimate.
As a motorcyclist who's lane splitting, does Mr. Martinez have a set amount of time when he's allowed to react to traffic around him so he can lower his speed differential?
When you say allowed, I don't understand. Are you talking legal? Or are you talking?
Let me ask it again, hopefully in a better way. Is it reasonable for a motorcyclist who's lane splitting to take a few seconds to react to traffic when controlling his speed differential?
I see. Well, the way I would answer that is typical perception reaction time for motorists is accepted to be 1.5 seconds. So when you just had your hypothetical and you said a few seconds, I would not anticipate a reasonable perception reaction time for a motorcycle rider to be more than 1.5 seconds. All the research shows that perception reaction time, specifically reaction time for motorcyclists, is less than car drivers, specifically because your foot is already on the brake and your hand is already near the brake, whereas in a vehicle, you have to physically shift your foot from the gas pedal to the brake pedal. So that 1.5 seconds is typically understood to be less for a motorcyclist. Now, a motorcyclist in a situation where you're lane splitting, there should be a heightened awareness that you might need to stop or slow rapidly. So I would expect that you generally wouldn't afford yourself as a motorcycle rider multiple seconds to react to traffic patterns when you're lane splitting.
Are you critical of Mr. Martinez's reaction time in this case?
I don't know about his reaction time. I would say if I was critical of anything in that arena, I would be critical of the fact that he did not slow in response to the traffic slowing and stopping that he was lane splitting through, in a sense, creating that 20-mile-an-hour speed differential.
Is there any way to determine if Mr. Martinez had been traveling at 5 miles per hour or 10 miles per hour or 15 miles per hour within 1 second or 2 seconds before the accident, that it would have been avoidable in this case?
Objection asked and answered, but you can answer.
I don't know. There's multiple scenarios that you just articulated, and I'd have to go through each one and simulate them and see if the accident would have occurred or not.
And fair to say you haven't done any of those simulations up until today?
That's correct.
And you don't plan on doing any before you testify at trial, true?
That's correct.
Okay. What I want to do next is take a look at your two, do you call them simulations or recreations of the accident?
The two, I'm not sure what you mean, the two what?
The simulations that you did, the bird's eye view simulation and the defendant driver view simulation. Is that what you call them,
I
simulations?
see. Okay, so okay, I understand your question. So it's one simulation. Those are just different renderings from different points of view of the same simulation.
Got it.
Can I make a request? Can we go off the record real quick? I just need to use the restroom.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a 5-minute break and I'll get those videos ready.
Thank you.
Going
Go
going
ahead.
off the record, the time now is 12:02 p.m. We are now back on the record. The time is 12:08 p.m.
Okay, Mr. Wayne, before we jump into the videos, just want to go over a few more exhibits I had. This is exhibit number 7, just a screenshot of the folders that I have for your file production. Does this look like a full and complete copy of your expert file for this case?
Yes.
Okay, great. Exhibit number 8 is a copy of your 19-slide PowerPoint presentation. Do you see exhibit number 8 up on your screen?
I do.
Okay. And we've gone through a lot of it, but does this presentation more or less contain all the information and opinions that you intend to offer at the time of trial?
Essentially, yes.
And at the very end are the 2 PC crash simulations, correct?
Again, it's only one simulation, but yeah, they're two different views of the same simulation.
One's bird's eye view on slide 18, and the other is from the defendant driver's viewpoint on slide 19, correct?
More or less. It's not really from her point of view, but yeah, it's from inside a vehicle making that left turn, such as she did.
Is there a reason why you didn't do the viewpoint from the motorcyclist?
Not really, no.
And it looks like slides 12 through 17 just break down the different speeds and times before impact with the simulation you prepared. True?
Essentially, yes.
All right. Going backward, but slide 11, what is this?
This is a portion of data that came out of the Toyota's crash data recorder.
And this section right here that I'm highlighting, service brake / on and off, does that tell you when Miss Sargent had applied the brake and when she hadn't?
Essentially, yes.
And accelerator pedal percentage, does that tell you when she applied her foot to the gas pedal?
Yes. I mean, it can. I mean, it's telling you the percentage that the pedal is being depressed, but yeah, from that you can get the time.
Okay. And so it looks like about 4 seconds before the crash, she applied her foot to the gas pedal. And then again, 1 second and half a second before the crash, she applied her foot to the pedal. True?
The first data point you highlighted was actually about 3.5 seconds prior.
Thank you.
I think you said 4 or something like that, but
Yes. Okay. So we've got Ms. Sargent, based on the crash data recorder, applying her foot to the gas pedal about 3.5 seconds before impact, and again at 1 second and half a second. True?
yes.
Does this tell you that Ms. Sargent was accelerating through her turn at the point when Mr. Martinez would have been visible to her?
Again, we don't know exactly when, if and when they were visible to each other. What that does tell me is within the last second prior to impact, she was in the process of accelerating her vehicle.
Okay. All right. And you can't differentiate whether this means she had applied her foot to the pedal when she would have been able to see Mr. Martinez or not. Is that a true statement?
An objection speculative.
Correct, because we're not able to define exactly when they were able to see each other, or specifically when she could see him.
Okay. And you believe no one can define that?
Given the amount of information we have now, I don't know that anybody could accurately define it.
Did you see the time that Mr. Yates gave as the point when the defendant driver and the motorcyclist would have been visible to each other?
I believe I did, yes.
What time did he?
I don't recall. And the reason I said I believe I did, I didn't really pay too much attention to it, specifically the numerical number, because I thought that was based on a lot of speculation. We don't know what car that was, again, in the number 1 lane, and we don't know exactly its position. So you take a different car, or you move whatever car up or back 10 feet, that number changes. So I mean, to be honest, I didn't really care what the number was, because it didn't really have much basis for me.
Okay. And then the other slides in your PowerPoint, I don't want to go through them with you, but they appear just to be pictures from the scene of the accident and from your site inspection of the accident scene, correct?
Typically, that's what's in them. There will probably be some aerial photographs and a drawing.
Let me pull it up. I don't want to
Okay,
miss anything and you pull anything on you. So page 2
yeah,
is an
aerial
aerial
drawing.
photograph. What's this,
Scene-
page 3?
Yep, scene diagram,
Page 4?
inspection photograph that I took during my inspection.
Page 5?
Same thing, inspection photograph I took,
Page 6?
same thing.
Page 7?
This is a composite. The photo on the left was an at-scene photograph. The photograph on the right was a photograph that I took, correlating the location of some of the imperfections in the roadway, so I could do photogrammetry to lay in the rest points of the vehicles.
Page 8?
At-scene photograph,
Page 9?
at-scene photograph.
And lastly, page 10.
Okay, this is a inspection photograph I took when I inspected the Toyota.
Okay. All right, I think those are all the slides. And then I just wanted to ask you about exhibit number 9, which is what appears to be just a page of calculations. You see exhibit number 9 in front of you?
I do.
What is this?
This is essentially calculations for the motorcycle impact speed,
Okay, what did you determine the motorcycle impact speed to be?
approximately 20 miles an hour.
That was consistent with what Mr. Martinez testified to at his deposition?
Yes.
Did you see any evidence that Mr. Martinez did any braking before the impact with the Prius?
No.
All right, let's run through these videos. I'm going to attach these separately, probably by CD or thumb drive. But the first one is going to be the video titled PCCplan.avi. I'm going to try to pull it up on the screen so we can both see it together. You see this, Mr. Wayne?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to run through it for you one time. It's a 6-second simulation, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. What was your purpose in creating that simulation?
That is essentially an accurate reconstruction of the collision, matching the physical evidence. So it accurately depicts the time distance relationship between the two vehicles in the 6 seconds prior to impact.
Is that meant to be a fair and accurate depiction of the motor vehicle accident?
The portions in motion are, meaning the motorcycle and the Prius are meant to be accurate. The stopped vehicles are just in there for demonstrative purposes. Again, we don't know what models they are, and we don't know the exact locations of them. So those were just kind of put in there.
Would you agree with me that you also don't know that the multiple rows of traffic were stopped 5 seconds before the collision?
Correct. When you say multiple rows, you mean 4 deep in an east-west fashion, not multiple rows as far as number 1 lane, number 2 lane.
Right.
Agreed.
And isn't it true that based on all the testimony from Ms. Sargent and Mr. Martinez, in the 5 seconds before the collision, those lanes of travel, lane number 1 and lane number 2, were moving and were not stopped the entire time? Fair statement?
Objection, speculation. Go ahead.
I think according to the testimony, some portions of the number 1 and number 2 lane were still moving 5 seconds prior. I think you had stated prior that, and I said I didn't object, within the 3 to 5 seconds prior, there was vehicles stopped in each lane.
Okay. The simulation we just looked at, it doesn't show the motorcyclist leave his vehicle, correct?
Correct.
It doesn't show any damage to the vehicles, correct?
Correct.
It doesn't show the motorcycle slide on the ground flat on the concrete, correct?
Correct. The simulation was only 6 seconds prior up until impact.
All right, let's look at we'll mark as exhibit number 10. The other video. This file is titled PCC Point Cloud.
John, 10 would be the next one. The prior video you just showed, did you intend to mark that as 10 or not mark it?
Yes, excuse me. Let me mark the prior video as 10 and let's mark this new one as exhibit number 11. All right, Mr. Wayne, you see the simulation up in front of you on the screen?
I do.
And this is the same simulation that you prepared where we saw the bird's eye view. It's just from a different viewpoint, correct?
Agreed.
Okay. Is there some reason why you chose this point of view within the vehicle?
It is a kind of a generic location for a driver to be.
Okay,
Meaning I didn't put Miss Sargent in her vehicle, measure her eye height and her eye position and attempt to match that. It's a Prius. This is obviously in the driver's seat, just in front where a head would be at a nominal seated height.
all right. Let's run through this 6-second simulation too. Okay. This video too doesn't show the rows of traffic in Mr. Martinez's direction moving at all, correct?
Correct.
It doesn't show the motorcyclist leave his vehicle, correct?
No, again, this is all based on the same simulation where it stops at impact between the two vehicles.
Okay. And it doesn't show any damage to the vehicles from the impact, true?
Correct.
This simulation also doesn't show any of the drivers inside of the vehicles traveling in Mr. Martinez's direction, true?
Correct.
You've already talked about it with me, but you've essentially chosen at random 7 vehicles as placeholders to put into your simulation, true?
I'll take your word for it that there was 7, but yes, I just chose some random vehicles and put them in there as placeholders.
Okay. You have the driver looking down the turn lane as she's making her turn, as opposed to looking at oncoming traffic, true?
When you say the driver, are you talking about the camera that's in that?
Yes, in
Okay.
the simulation.
So what I have is the camera more biased toward the right, which is the direction of oncoming traffic. More realistically, the driver, part of the way through this turn, would focus their attention more to the left to where they were going, to the upcoming driveway. But to be conservative, I kept the camera facing biased toward the southeast, where the conflict would be coming from.
Do you have any knowledge based on the testimony as to which direction Miss Sargent was looking when she was making the turn?
No.
In this scenario, a driver making a left-hand turn across traffic, shouldn't they be looking out to ensure that each lane is clear as they're making their turn?
Objection calls for legal opinion. But he can answer to the extent it falls within his area of expertise.
Yeah, when making a left turn, a driver should clear each lane for potential conflicts. And then at some point, when they're convinced that those lanes are cleared, focus their attention to where they're going, in this case, the driveway, so they can accurately drive on the driveway and not onto the curb next to the driveway.
Would you agree with me that there are more than just the 2 lanes of vehicle traffic that Miss Sargent should have been looking out for as she was making this turn?
Objection again calls for legal opinion. But again, to the extent it falls within your area of expertise, I should say, you can answer.
There are only 2 lanes of travel westbound in this location. There are additional conflicts she needs to be aware of in the form of the sidewalk. So pedestrians traveling both ways on that south sidewalk, as well as, bicyclists and skateboards and stuff like that.
And that would also include motorcyclists traveling in between lanes of traffic, true?
That to me is encompassed in the 2 lanes of travel. I mean, yeah, you said that in addition to the 2 lanes of travel.
Okay, all right. And then it looks like at this point in the video, around 4 seconds into the video, based on the vehicles you've chosen, Mr. Martinez or the motorcyclist is visible to the driver in this simulation. True?
I don't know. Our pictures are, there we go. Our pictures from the Zoom were blocking the view. Now something just moved.
I'm sliding back around the
I
3 to
see,
4
I
second
see.
mark.
Yeah, I see, right around that time that you're toggling, I can see Mr. Martinez's representation starting to appear, just beside the A-pillar of that vehicle.
And if the viewpoint in the vehicle or the camera that you have was placed facing oncoming traffic, we would still see the motorcyclist approaching for the next second up until impact. True?
You're asking it from, at this point forward, if the camera was still turned more to the right, looking at essentially Mr. Martinez's approach direction, would we be able to see him? Is that the question?
Yes.
Then yes. The answer is yes, we would. I would expect the camera to be able to see it.
Okay. And based on the crash data, at around this point, the 4 second mark in your simulation, you have Miss Sargent pressing on the gas pedal to complete her turn. True?
What, I'm sorry, what time slice are you asking about?
I'm looking right here at the end of the 3 second mark when it switches to 4 seconds on the simulation.
All right, so that is. So that's approximately 2 seconds prior to impact, because impact happens right around 6 seconds. So 2 seconds prior to impact, she's still slowing.
And when does she step on the gas pedal?
The final. Well, that's a tough question to answer, but the vehicle does increase in speed between 1.5 seconds and a second before impact. So T = 5 is essentially a second before impact. I go the other, whoops.
Did I go the wrong way?
Yeah, you're, keep going back. Where?
Back.
So I'm looking at the, where it says T = 4. Right now you got 4.11. Yeah, right there.
Top left corner. I see it.
Yeah, let's try to get that to about T = 5.
All right. Okay.
There you go. Okay, so at this point, vehicle speed's increasing.
Okay. And is this the first point in time when Miss Sargent's vehicle increases in speed after that initial acceleration she made?
Well, we don't know because we have a data point at essentially 1.5 seconds prior to impact, and then we have another one essentially 1 second prior to impact. So somewhere in that time frame, the acceleration increased. I mean, the speed increased, but we don't know it. So when you say, is that the first point? I don't know. It's, you know, there's a range in there that it occurred, in which it occurred.
And the car seems to dip in the simulation around the 5 second mark. Is that the point of impact in the simulation? Let me run through it for you again.
Okay.
I'm watching the T at the top left.
Oops. I was watching the car in, correct. So yeah, okay, so I get it. So most likely the impact happens at 5 seconds. So the car being jolted is impact.
Okay. Do you have any way to know if the jolt that's shown on this video is an accurate representation of what it would have looked like in Miss Sargent's vehicle at the time of impact?
Depending on her suspension settings, it probably is pretty accurate.
All right. So now knowing that now knowing that the impact's at 5 seconds, what T time is it when Miss Sargent puts her foot on the gas pedal for the last time before impact?
So let's go to somewhere 3.5 to 4.
Okay,
So let's go 375. And that's my best estimate as to when the vehicle started accelerating.
okay, all right. And from this point forward, she accelerate up and time of impact.
The vehicle's accelerating up until the time of impact. She's actually making a decision to get on the brakes probably in this time frame, because she's on the brakes right at impact, which means there's some perception reaction time prior to impact. And seeing as how we're about a second and a fourth prior to impact, this is probably right around the time she's making that decision to get on the brakes.
Okay, with the crash data that we looked at, when it has the percentage next to the accelerator, does that tell us her foot is actually on the gas pedal at about 1 second before impact and half a second before impact?
Yes.
Or can she still be accelerating without her foot on the gas pedal?
Both. The accelerator pedal percentage tells at that time that there's actually pressure on the accelerator. The line above it with the vehicle speed tells you if the speed is increasing, i.e. is the car accelerating or not. The confusion comes in that not all these data points are recorded exactly the same time. So just because, for example, this says negative 0.95, the way that the system works, the data point that we have for vehicle speed corresponding to negative 0.95 says 3.1 miles an hour. That wasn't necessarily taken at the same instant in time as the 39% value that's in the column right below it for accelerator pedal.
Okay, I think I understand. And I'm just looking at it with you right here. But does this at least mean that at 0.95 seconds before the impact, Miss Sargent's foot is on the gas pedal?
Give or take, yes.
And at give or take 0.45 seconds before impact, does this 37.5 value also indicate that her foot's on the gas pedal?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I understand, I think. All right. Lane splitting is legal in California, right?
At the time of the accident, it was, yes.
Objection calls for legal conclusion.
Sorry.
As a motorcyclist yourself, do you split lanes at times?
I do,
When do you do so?
when there's a lot of traffic.
So being in Southern California, probably a few number of times, true?
Agreed, unfortunately.
Have we gone over all the specific rules and guidelines that you intend to offer about lane splitting by a motorcyclist at the time of trial?
The ones that I covered are the ones I intend to cover at trial. Now, if somebody such as yourself asks me something about another one, I'll probably opine on it, but I don't plan on introducing anything different.
Okay. Have we discussed all the opinions you plan to give at trial and the bases for your opinions?
What we've discussed are all my main opinions. Obviously, there's infinite sub-opinions that go into these, but there's nothing that, there's no other main opinion I intend to present other than what we've gone over today.
And were your main opinions included in that opinion list that you read into the record earlier?
Yes.
Can we get a photocopy of that and I'll attach that as exhibit number 12?
Done.
Okay, just send that to Ms. Curtis. She'll send it to me and I'll get it to the court reporter.
I can also see some Ms. Pierce. She
Oh, perfect.
She wants me to because she has emailed me.
Great, we'll do that then. Okay, Do you plan to do any additional work now in between the time that you testify at trial?
Just prep for trial. At some point, read Mr. Yates's deposition. And if that triggers any rebuttal work, but I think I have a good handle on his opinion, so.
Okay, if your opinions change in any substantive way, based on your review of Mr. Yates's deposition, will you let Ms. Curtis know so she can tell me and I can see if I need to take your deposition again?
Sure, I don't anticipate my opinions changing.
Okay.
So,
Did you read Officer Stratus's deposition?
excuse me?
Sorry, whose?
Stratus, Stratis.
What was the question?
Did you read Officer Stratus's deposition?
I did.
Did his testimony factor into your opinions in any way?
Nothing substantive that I can recall.
He was the officer who investigated the accident and wrote the traffic collision report, right?
I understand he was the investigating officer. I wasn't aware that he was the one that wrote the report.
And he found Ms. Sargent to be 100% at fault for the traffic collision, true?
Objection. Traffic collision report and deposition speak for themselves. I'm going to direct him not to answer. He doesn't need to restate what's stated in the records.
Is that consistent with your review, or am I stating anything wrong of the traffic collision report? Let me ask you, did you review the traffic collision report?
I did.
Okay.
The traffic collision report's conclusion is that P1, which is Miss Sargent, caused the collision.
Does that finding factor into your opinions in any way?
No.
Okay. Other than the 3 PDFs that you sent me regarding motorcycle operation, did you review and rely on any other literature or articles informing your opinions?
No.
All right. Are you critical of Ms. Sargent at all in her operation of the motor vehicle in the left turn?
No.
So is it fair to say then that you put 100% of the responsibility for this accident on the motorcyclist, Mr. Martinez?
Again, I'm not putting responsibility on anybody. I just think that the actions that he engaged in that we talked about were the contributing factors to this collision.
Do you have any opinions about whether this collision could have been avoided?
Objection, speculation, conjecture. If you can answer.
Potentially, yes.
How?
Depending on the specifics, and when I'm thinking about specifics, I mean the types and the exact locations of the vehicles that were stopped. Potentially could have, the collision potentially could have been avoided with a lower speed differential on Mr. Martinez's part.
And you agree with me, I think you've testified to it, but there's no way for you to know what those vehicles are to make that determination, true?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Wayne. I don't have any more questions.
Great.
Catherine?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, great. I think we're going by code.
That's
So,
fine. If I could be sent an electronic copy, that would make it easier on everyone involved. I'll order it no matter what, and I'll forward it to my client and to our expert.
Jordan?
Okay, before we go off the record, Mr. Schwalbach, would you like a copy of the video synced with the transcript?
not yet. I'll let you know.
And Ms. Curtis, do you have any transcript or video orders additionally?
No, I'm going to request, as previously stated, I'm going to request a certified copy of the transcript and an electronic copy, but at this time, no video.
Okay, thank you. So we are now going off the record. The time is 12:41 p.m. on October 8th, 2021.